Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Mendoza, and today we're going to be talking about episode 404 off of Ben Franklin's World podcast. All right, and this is just a little introduction. Today we're going to be talking about what even is Ben Franklin's World podcast, and it's a podcast hosted by Liz Covart, and it really just focuses on like early American history before the Civil War. And basically, the goal of the podcast is to make academic history easier for public to understand, right? And to do that, they interview different historians about different topics. And today's topic, or today's historian that we're talking about, is going to be Dwayne M. Spivey, and she was a culinary historian. She studies like African American food history, so like the whole entire history of African American food, and she's actually the author of one of these books called At the Table of Power, and in that book she discusses how food can kind of connect to race identity and just power in American society, right? And with her research, she mainly dives into like how enslaved and black people influenced the development of America's cuisine or America's cuisine we know today, like American food that we eat today, right? And it's really really big in the South, especially because like obviously that's where a lot of African Americans kind of like had to go about their upbringing, right? So she argues that a lot of the foods that are traditionally American that we notice actually have super strong African American ties, and she just like sheds the light on that, and I think that's pretty cool. And I chose this episode because it looks at early African American history from like a different type of perspective. Usually we talk about like wars and uh, politics, the major leaders, like, and this episode kind of focused on like what we enjoy and eat on the everyday kind of level, something like food. And I thought it was pretty interesting how something so common, especially as something as cooking, because we eat every day. We have to eat food to cook, and we have to cook to eat food, right? I'm I was really like kind of interested on how that can reveal deeper ideas about slavery, culture, and power, and it made me realize that history is just not about huge events like that aren't so common in everyday life. But today, I chose the episode because like food, it tackles kind of like everyday life. So I thought it'd be a great episode to knock out. And a couple of main ideas from this episode is that Spivey makes that black chefs had a major influence on like southern uh, food, like southern early African food, right? Cooking techniques like frying food, using seasonings, and slow cooking, those are all African traditions that America like really uses today, and that's kind of cool how it's kind of based on like early African Americans. Like they're the ones who kind of like introduced this to kind of America, right? And then she also explains that plantation kitchens were places of forced labor, but these spaces were also where African American culture kind of survived and like maintained. So like through these places, like culture was pushed and maintained, right? So enslaved cooks passed down a lot of recipes and techniques that became part of American food traditions, right? So like stuff like fried chicken, anything fried, using a lot of seasonings, getting that southern pop of like different herbs and elements like that. That all came from enslaved black chefs and people who just trying to make a way for their people, right? And even though they were enslaved, some highly skilled cooks gained a certain level of trust or responsibility because of their expertise. However, they were still living with unfair and oppressive systems, which again it was very unfortunate because cooking is it's a talent, right? So they introduced all these different techniques and different type of like recipes to America, and America kind of took those traditions, like took those like um, cooking systems, and kind of just like took it and kind of separated it from the people who actually introduced it to them in the first place. And this is me answering the required question. And how does Dwayne M. Spivey work to help us understand life in the early America before the Civil War? And I believe her work shows that early America was shaped not only by political leaders, but also by enslaved African Americans whose labor influenced daily life. Slavery affected every part of society, including homes and kitchens. And Spivey also challenges the idea that American culture was uh, mainly European. She shows that African traditions played a major role in shaping American food as we know it today. And this helps us understand early America as a society because it was shaped by cultural exchange, not just by everything by like the Europeans. A lot of America is built off of different cultures, and African American culture is definitely a big culture, right? That America kind of like was built on, right? And her research reminds us that us enslaved people had skills, creativity, and cultural influence. By focusing on food, she helps us see a more complete and human picture of everyday American life. And I believe this episode is very significant because it expands the way we think about the history. It moves beyond just political events, such as like a boycott or a march. Like, don't get me wrong, those events were very, very big and they were very monumental. But things like cooking is everyday something we do every day, and it's a really big thing that culture like is based off, like food. And the fact that African American culture was it builds the American culture, especially in the subterms of food. I think it's really important that she sheds light on that, and gives appreciation to those in the past or in the history who were able to showcase what they were able to do with like the conditions they went through and what they had. They didn't have the most resources, or they didn't have the greatest chances to showcase what they're doing. So her shedding the light on this is really important, I feel like. And all in all, this episode, it really helped me understand how culture and identity developed in the early America. Diane M. Spivey, her work shows that food is just more than something people eat. It reflects the history, it reflects past, and it reflects the power and survival. And I think those are all important things that, she's shedding light on. Food is more than something we just digest and, go about our day on. It shows, the past, what people had to work with, their resources they had, and it shows like the culture, because what is culture without food? They're tied in, they go hand in hand. And I really felt like she did a great job of shedding the light for us to fully understand America before the Civil War. We have to look at both major historical events every day. Experiences like cooking and food traditions are something that we just can't be without. Those are something that makes America. So the fact that she shed light on this, I felt was very important, and I felt like I learned a lot. And I'm really kind of grateful for this project because I learned a lot about food, African American culture, especially early on before the Civil War. And I think she did a great job of diving in again and shedding the light. And I'm not gonna lie, this is something that I'll remember for a long time. So that is my project. That is my conclusion. Thank you for watching my the review of the 404 podcast. Great podcast. I will be tuning into more podcasts, and thank you for having me.